Get your man the flute to play song, the fuck.
There you go, it's everyone, Kojima Atashi, and welcome back to episode number 135 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, Inline G. So, this is the episode that I was meant to do last week, but then I ended up going down that rabbit hole on motivation and psychology, and I totally lost the run of myself. So we're back this week to finally do the episode I intended to. Ironically, I wasn't very motivated to write this episode. Sometimes on this podcast, writing episodes begins to feel a little bit too much like hard work. And I don't like that. I know that's the case when I start to procrastinate, which essentially procrastination is just a fear of failure, really, or it's avoiding some kind of negative emotion. In my case, certainly failure. And it's just that totally irrational way of prioritizing things that don't fucking matter over the important things. We're all guilty of that. And last week when I was writing this episode, I decided that I'm going to let it happen. I'm going to let myself procrastinate for a little while and see what comes out of it. Because if I'm not enjoying the process of writing the episodes, it may as well go out the fucking window. And I know I'm going to find something. I just had to put myself in a good mental place, an inspirational strike. You just have to let it happen. And then, sure, this week, the motivation came back and this episode wrote itself again. Because recently I've been playing with a new woodwind quintet. Woo! So in the last year, things have changed a lot around here for myself. You know, I use this podcast 2 years now. We've been doing this nearly. I use this podcast as a way to sort of get myself known within the flute industry and push myself forward because I feel like my playing and post-corona, it wasn't going to get me there. The last year, because of this podcast, my life has changed so much. I am working all the fucking time. It's great in music, sometimes in football. I'm teaching a lot. I've got a new orchestra I'm playing with. The orchestra is called the Junge Symphony Köln. I'm sure you guys have seen me advertise this on Instagram. I've actually got two orchestras, but that's the one I'm doing a lot. Now, it's an amateur orchestra. I think I've talked about this before in the podcast. It's an amateur unpaid orchestra. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, that's very strange, Gareth. You love money. And I have played very frequently with professional orchestras. Also in the last year or two, I've been back to doing that. So it seems strange to go back down to an amateur orchestra or go down. That's the thing. I don't want to think of it that way because I need to get the joy back for making music. I needed to get the joy back for playing orchestrally, and this did it. I adore this orchestra. The people are lovely. German amateur orchestras are not like other countries, by the way. They're high fucking level. They practice a lot. They work a lot. Germans are dedicated to this kind of stuff. I love the process of going to rehearsals. I love the concerts. It's nice to feel like I'm in an orchestra where I don't have to prove myself and I'm very much at the standard, if not, I don't want to say above it, but you know what I mean. I've got experience in professional orchestras. So playing in an amateur orchestra, it means I can bring that experience with me and lead a little bit, which is really nice. Also good for my ego. And because of that, I made some new contacts. I've started to establish myself a little bit more in Cologne, which I never got to do before. And I'm playing with a new chamber orchestra, which has evolved out of the Junge Symphony Köln. We have a chamber orchestra. And now, through that as well, a wind quintet. The wind quintet is great. It's all players from the orchestra. Two brothers are playing in it. So the oboe, who's the principal oboe in the orchestra, and the bassoon, who is principal bassoon and also conductor for half the year. And they're brothers. And, I need to message a friend. I'll do that in a minute. They're two brothers, and their father founded the orchestra. They're the Hesse brothers. If you're in Cologne, you'll know the family name Hesse. That's a big name around these parts of music. These two lads are incredible musicians. I mean, stupidly good, wildly talented, know everything, can play everything. Their father, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore, founded the orchestra, was a very prolific composer in this area. Amazing stuff. You wouldn't believe what a German amateur orchestra could do. And those two lads will be on this podcast soon as guests. I cannot wait for that. But anyway, sorry, I'm away. I'm losing the run of myself. We're going to be doing a Dvorak gig soon. It's an arrangement for a wind quintet of... Honestly, I don't know which piece it is. It's something to do with choir. I'm not that into my Dvorak. But I'm getting paid for it. Man, I'm getting money for these gigs, which is insane. I would do these for nothing. Don't tell them that. But I would do these for nothing because I'm making a living. I don't need classical music to make money. So when I get the chance to play the high level music making, of course I do it for nothing. But you get a paycheck at the end. It's fucking great. So it's great. My life is amazing in a minute. And I love a wind quintet in general. And I think like a lot of things within our industry, and certainly with its flute players or woodwind players, it's not as popular for people outside of that world. And that's a fucking shame. And I realized that when my girlfriend asked me when I went to my first rehearsal, what's a wind quintet? And I'm like, well, Time I did an episode on this and debunked it all and got the glory of the wind quintet out to the general public, as if the general public listen to this fucking podcast. Also, who is listening to this podcast? Because I know the flute players are listening to it, because you guys talk to me every week or every month. But the numbers of people that listen to this, there's so many people out there that listen regularly. I have no fucking clue who you are. Please reach out. I'm so curious to find out who listens to this podcast. Send me a message. Just say hello. I'd love to hear from you. So anyway, I wanted to explain. So quickly, for those totally unfamiliar, the woodwind section of the orchestra, it's that lovely little pocket. They sit just behind. So you have the strings as your main body. There's a pocket of the woodwind instruments that sit just behind. Now, the woodwind instruments in the orchestra are the flutes, the clarinets, the oboes, and the bassoons. Each one of them has a doubling instrument, or a couple. So that means something that that player can play, a similar instrument, usually higher or lower. So, for example, with flutes, it's the piccolo. Sometimes the alto flute as well. With the bassoons, it would be the contrabassoon. With the oboe, it would be the cor anglais. And with the clarinet, it would be the E-flat clarinet, or the soprano clarinet, or the bass clarinet as well. Sometimes pops up, sometimes too. So that's your general woodwind instruments plus the saxophone. But the saxophone isn't an established member of the orchestra. It's brought in for some pieces. But the saxophone was really only coming into popular music making in like the 1900s. And the orchestra exists way before that. So that's your woodwind instruments. Now, a woodwind quintet. Well, quintet, there's 5 of us, obviously. That goes without saying. And it's flute, oboe, bassoon, clarinet, and the French horn, which is not a wind instrument. It's actually a brass instrument. But it's using the woodwind quintet to give it a little bit of extra colour. And we call that a chamber ensemble, or chamber music, which is so fucking wanky. It drives me mad. It is the same in German and French as well. It's like musique de chambre in French, and it's Kammermusik auf Deutsch. It's a load of shit. I really, really hate that term. But it's basically, chamber music is a small group without a conductor. So it's a number of musicians that you can play without a conductor. You're talking like... It sort of depends, but I would say anything up to 8 players is a chamber group. You don't need a conductor up to 8 players. After that, you have to start thinking of getting a conductor. You also have chamber orchestras, although they generally have conductors, another thing entirely. But chamber is a little shite. It just means for playing in small rooms. Playing in wee rooms. It's wee music. It's a wee music ensemble for making wee music. Wee boys and wee girls making wee music. And technically, composers can write for whatever mixture of instruments they want in chamber music. Whatever the fuck they want. Like, there is one example of a woodwind quintet where... some French guy dropped the principal flute and got their brother playing percussion instead to come in. Which will sound like dog shit, man, but whatever floats your boat. We're not here to judge. We're not here to king shame on the Inline G podcast. But composers will generally go for things that blend well together. So what that means is you want to get the high and the low, the full range of sounds covered in it, but not drastically so. So you don't want a piccolo and a subcontra bass or a subcontra bassoon or something like that. You want a nice blend of the 5 instruments. So you have high, low, middle, and you have 2 instruments that sort of sit in between those 2 ranges. So when you're going through a wind quintet, for example, the flute is the highest instrument. Then you have the oboe, which has a slightly lower range than the flute, but very similar. Then you're going to have the clarinet, which is a bit lower again, the bassoon, which is lower, and the horn. Or the horn, then the bassoon. Again, we're all sort of jumping on top of each other a little bit, but it has that lovely smooth blend. And slightly different sounds as well to blend. It's like making a good cocktail. Really, it's making sure you put the right ingredients in the right doses to make sure they blend together and just mwah, 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 mwah. Now, the most established form of chamber music, or the most established formation, is the string quartet. You've all heard them. You've all seen them at weddings when they're getting far too much money for doing it. String quartet, think of that as like your cosmopolitan of the classical music world. It's fucking bang on. It's standard. You see them everywhere, and for good reason. The woodwind quintet would be more like an Aperol Spritz kind of situation. Kind of new on the block, relatively speaking, but it suits the modern world. It's a lovely blend, and it's just perfect for the modern day. Fuck, I'm good. Sorry, I need a second to appreciate it. I'm so fucking good, lads. This podcast should be more famous. That's fucking good analogy. I just pulled that out of my arse, by the way. Fuck. You just don't know what you have until you lose it, maybe. Don't threaten me with a good time. The string quartet has been about much longer, though, and it is way more established. And there's a simple reason for that. And it's also the same reason why the big name composers of the Baroque, Classical, Romantic eras only really wrote big solo pieces for strings and piano. So you think of people like Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, even people like Tchaikovsky and stuff like that. They all only really wrote for strings and piano as solo instruments. And the reason for that is, up until relatively frequently, 1800s, sort of before that, woodwind instruments were shite. They were dog shit. They were much more simple than the modern ones we have now. They had no keys. They made no fucking sound. The minute you played outside, a bit of air got into them, they were fucked. They were dead. So they weren't appropriate. Strings haven't changed drastically. Since the formation of the violin, violins are not that different now to what they were 300 years ago. Flutes are wildly different, totally different instruments. So back in the older days, we're talking sort of 1700s, up to the 1700s, vocal music was much more popular. You had words, people knew what was going on. And instrumental music without singers was mainly used for dances. And we entertainment pieces and we tunes. And that's also where the idea of harmony music comes from, which, again, in English, we use the German word Harmoniemusik. I don't know why, with a K at the end. It's, again, so fucking wanky. This classism of using European languages. I'm telling you, German is a disgusting horse language, man. You come to this country, there's nothing classy about it. But harmony music was the idea that you had a small group of wind instruments that were generally interchangeable and they played together. It's like a wee band. And they had a couple of instruments, and the idea was you would write like a higher voice, and it was interchangeable which instrument you could use. It could be played on the flute, it could be played on the oboe. It didn't really fucking matter. You just needed a wind instrument to play it in that range, and same for the deeper parts. So generally it was like the horns or the bassoons playing in unison down at the bottom end, and then 2 clarinets above it or 2 oboes above it. And then that expanded a little bit to become an octet, which is 8 players. But the first use of 5 woodwinds together is by a guy called Francesco Antonio Rossetti. So he's knocking about at the same time as like Haydn and Mozart, your mid-1700s. Now, fucking, this cracks me up. There is a debate over Francesco Antonio Rossetti's name. Is it that, or is it Franz Anton Rösler? I think it's pretty obvious which one I prefer. Man, why is there a debate between Franz Anton Rösler and Francesco Antonio Rossetti? They are 2 different people. They all both sound like they played for Chelsea in the 90s. But the guy was Czech, Bavarian, Czech Republic nowadays, or Czechia. And the rumor is he was born with a German name and then changed it, although there's some sorts that sort of go against that. But to be honest, for fuck's sake, if my name was Franz Anton Rösler and I get away with changing it to Francesco, I'd be Francesco all fucking day, mate. Everyone wants a Francesco. Francesco's who you go on holidays with. Franz does your taxes. So he wrote the very first woodwind quintet, we'll call it, sort of. But it was for cor anglais, not the French horn. So it wasn't technically a wood quintet by our standards today. Also, isn't it mad how we say cor anglais in English? Even though it's a French word, and it means English horn. Fuck me. Anyway, his quintet, I'm not gonna lie, was a wee bit shite. Wasn't great. I mean, the instruments, again, were not great at this time. They hadn't developed yet. Although something sexy and delicious was coming up in the woodwind world in the mid-1700s. But, because at that time, the woodwind instruments, they were fed up of always being the bridesmaid and never being the bride. And it was time that we stepped into the world, looking better than ever. A revolution was coming in the 1700s. But before I get to that, 13 minutes in, perfect timing. Before I get to that, dear listeners, if you're new around here, stick around for a wee minute here. Don't go anywhere. It's a very important part of the podcast. If you're a regular listener, you know what's about to happen. You can jump on ahead there a minute or 2. The Inline G podcast is free, and it will always be free. That is a motherfucking guarantee. However, if you wish to support the podcast and donate, you can do so now through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs €5 a month. I actually think it's $5 a month is the official currency, but it's €5 a month, okay? You can actually sign up and then unsubscribe immediately if you'd rather just give like a one-off 5 payment. Now, with the Patreon, you're keeping the podcast alive. I make an episode of this podcast every single fucking Friday. I write the script, I put it all together, or I go find the guests and interview them. Every Friday, bar one I missed in 135 weeks. One Friday I missed because I was too busy getting drunk in Georgia. But generally you get it every Friday. There are no sponsors in this podcast, and I will never have sponsors because every time they want to come on, they say, you can't swear, you can't talk about politics, can't talk about which classical musicians are in the Epstein files. Which there are, by the way, and we will be having an episode on that, for fuck's sake. So, this podcast is, first of all, the biggest flute podcast in the world now, by quite some way. By the way, I've looked at the numbers, by quite some fucking way. And also, it is 100% listener funded. You guys are paying for this. You guys pay for the podcast, I make the one that you want. Easy peasy. You get exactly what you want. It's a lot of work making this podcast every week. I adore it. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life creatively, and I love hearing your feedback on it. But it is a lot of work, and it's nice to get paid for my work as an independent artist. You're keeping it alive. Without the patrons, I would have packed this in fucking ages ago. It's too much work. It's not worth it. The money is worth it though, and the support is worth it. So if you can afford it, it's €5 a month. What the fuck does Netflix cost these days? €13, €14. It's nothing, okay? I translate to your currency. There's no weird fees or anything. No matter where you are in the world, you can subscribe to it. It's well worth your money to support an independent podcaster. Imagine you met me in the pub, you listen to 4 episodes in this month, and you say, fuck it, buy Gareth a pint to say thank you. There you are. You're doing the equivalent of that. Thank you very much for it. Also, I should point out, well, no, actually, we'll get to that. If you can afford it, sign up over there. If you can't afford it, it's fine. Times are hard. Musicians don't make a lot of money these days. The arts are on their fucking knees. It's okay. You can keep listening for free. Someone who can afford to pay is paying so that you don't have to. Thank you very much. Before we continue with the podcast, by the way, can I please, well, you guys can't see, obviously, but you might notice the difference in quality in video this week. Hopefully. I don't know if I've done the settings right. I bought myself a brand new iPhone. Apple iPhone 16 Pro. Not the 17. I'm not made of fucking money, alright? But I got myself a brand new 16 Pro thanks to the proceeds from the Patreon. How fucking cool, man. I made enough money with this podcast to buy myself an iPhone 16 Pro, which means I'm going to be doubling up the cameras in future. I'm still trying to work out, but I'm going to have 2 cameras now where I can make the production quality much higher. And I've got a fancy new phone, thanks to you guys. You're fucking amazing. I promise you I will always reinvest the money that comes through the Patreon into the podcast. And I have done that. So thank you very much. What a time to be alive. So, we go back to the string quartet. Haydn. I'm sure you all heard of Haydn. He was referred to as the father of the string quartet, not the daddy of the string quartet. It's a different man altogether. For the wind quintet, our father, who art in heaven, hallowed be, our father is Anton Reicha. Now, Anton was born in 1770 in Prague. Quick quiz for anyone trying to work this out. Which other famous composer was born in 1770? You have 5 seconds to work it out. 4, 3, 2, 1. My man, Ludwig van. Beethoven was also born in 1770. He was born in Bonn, though, down the road. Now, a little bit on, I read this little thing about Anton Reicha online, which fucking cracked me up the way the person wrote this. I don't think they deliberately, it was like one of those really old websites where like the font is still blocky, and it's like, it must have been designed like 2006 and no one's updated it, but it's still live, and I found this, and it's fucking... Okay, so Reicha's father, Simon, was the town piper of Prague. This was a paid municipal position that required the piper to climb the town tower at various times of day to announce the hour by tootling. Perhaps exhausted by all the climbing, not to mention the tootling, Simon Reicha died when his son Anton was only 1 year old. Man, death by tootling. Don't threaten me with a good time. So Anton himself was a flute player. Blast. And at one point, he went into care with his uncle, and his uncle took a new job. His uncle was a conductor, concertmaster. He took a new job with the court orchestra in Bonn, which is just down the road from here. Bonn used to be a really important town in Germany, or city. It's small. It is small. It's about fucking 15 minutes from Cologne. There's fuck all in it. Favorite fact about Bonn, the biggest city in Europe to never have had a football team play in their top division. Bonner SVs are fucking shite. But Bonn used to be really important. It was the capital of the old West Germany before unification for various reasons. It's always held a really important role, even though it's shite. I'm going to write an episode on that as well, actually, because it's so fascinating. Although the UN is based there now. But Reicha's uncle pops over to Bonn, takes a job. Reicha comes in, plays the flute in the orchestra, and as he's tootling away without death, he looks over into the back of the viola section. Who's sitting there? Wee Ludwig. Wee fucking Ludwig van Beethoven is sitting right in the viola section. The boys are playing together and they become mates. And they stayed mates for their entire life, even though they went in very separate directions. So after Bonn, Beethoven obviously went to Vienna and had played a part in the, I don't want to say the establishment, but certainly the significance of the first Viennese music school, which might be next week's episode because I've been fascinated about this. Have I done an episode of that already? Fuck. I need to check. I forget what I've written about. Have I done an episode on the Viennese? If anyone remembers if I've done an episode on that, please tell me. I'll do one on the second one instead then. Anyway, Beethoven goes that way to Vienna. Reicha goes the other way to Paris, to Paris. So Beethoven goes and becomes Beethoven. Reicha went to Paris where, at the time, Paris was not quite yet the center of the music world. It was still obviously very significant, but its big moment was just about to come. Now, Reicha did study with a couple of well-known people like Charles Gounod, Ambroise Thomas, Berlioz, and César Franck. So, good time to be there. He's even buried at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, where Oscar Wilde is buried, Edith Piaf is buried, who else is there? Rossini, I think, is there. Although I think his bones have been moved back to Italy. Poulenc is there. A lot of big names. Jim Morrison from The Doors is down there. Great cemetery. If you're ever there, beautiful spot. Really, you can go and spend a day in there. It's a beautiful place to walk around. And as you go out one of the entries, there's a metro stop called Alexandre Dumas, after the writer who wrote Three Musketeers. Come out of that metro, look to your right, and there's a wee Algerian bakery. And it's open to 6 a.m. The amount of times I've went home drunk and went to that bakery, and they do this thing called the brique. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it's fucking class. It's an Algerian thing. Get stuck into it. So, Reicha went on to teach composition at the Paris Conservatoire. The Paris Conservatoire, by the way. For all the information on Paris Conservatoire and the weird attitude and misunderstandings we have towards it in English, go see my episode on the French. I think it's the French Flute School. It's something with French in it. You'll see it. It does the proper history of what actually exists in Paris. But he went to teach there, and he essentially founded the modern wind quintet. He was very, very prolific composer. He actually wanted to write at some point, and I don't know if he ever finished it. I should have researched this. He wanted to write a piece for multiple orchestras where they play simultaneously in different keys. Thank fuck he didn't write that. That sounds fucking terrible, man. But do you know what that is? That's, I'm going to go to Paris and find myself. That's smoking weed outside a fucking cafe, drinking absinthe, and honestly being encouraged too much. That's the kind of thing that in Paris people go, oh yeah, that's so cool, Anton. Well, someone should go, mate, fuck up. Fuck up. The orchestras are fine as they are playing in the one key. Stick to it, Anton. Fuck up. He's obviously trying to impress some wee Parisian girl. But anyway, his woodwind quintets did work. He wrote a shitload of them. He is the father of the modern woodwind quintet. Now, there's a big reason why it worked. He was in Paris at the time when the woodwind instruments were starting to develop, and most of them saw their development in Paris. So if I go through them all, before, this is the kind of time, so mid-1700s we're talking here, this is when woodwind instruments really started to devolve into what we know now. So for example, the flute, the Baroque and classical flutes were, well, shite. We know all about them. They were gradually getting more and more keys until a guy called Theobald Bohm came along and reinvented the entire thing. Now you have the modern keyed system, totally different instrument to what it was. The old flutes were kind of like a recorder but out to the side. Boom, reinvented it around about that time, which is why a lot of the great flute music starts to pop up as we go through the 1800s and 1900s. Now, what else are we going to say? Yeah, we still use Bohm flutes today. Now, the next one is oboes. So the Baroque and classical oboes, similar kind of idea, very unstable tuning. Very, very, very unstable. And the keys, again, just a couple of them. Not like the modern oboe, which has fucking loads of them. Again, they get gradually more keys throughout the 1700s. Then, in the 19th century, French makers standardized what they call the conservatoire system of the oboe. And nowadays we play the conservatoire system on oboes. There is still the Viennese oboe style. It does exist, but it's really rare. And you see it in like certain regions of Austria, but not really knocking about. With the clarinet, again, early clarinets, 2 to 6 keys, roughly. Again, very uneven. The big thing we talk about in clarinets is the break between certain notes or certain octave registers. There's a couple of notes where they were really fucking shite. They were way worse. Even Mozart's clarinet, which was, he wrote the clarinet concerto for, still quite limited technically. So, big revolution was the Bohm system clarinet. Although what's funny is, I still find this fascinating. There are 2 modern clarinet systems that are still used. There's the Bohm system, and there is a thing called the Euler system. I didn't know much about this. The Euler system is an alternative to the Bohm. They're very similar. The Euler has like, I think it's called a shorter mouthpiece or longer. The Euler's also got like these rollable keys at the bottom. Very similar, but if you learn one, it is hard to switch to the other. You sort of do it. The Euler is only used in Austria and Germany, but it is used. All the clarinet players in the Berlin Philharmonic and the Vienna Philharmonic both play Euler system clarinets, which is fucking fascinating. Really, really cool. Because they do have a different sound. They are generally accepted to be more difficult to play, but they have a totally different sound, which maybe explains how great the sound is of the woodwinds and certainly the clarinets in the Berlin Phil. Even though it's got that wanker Andy Ottensammer. Although he's gone now, isn't he? Fucking wanker, man. Someone tell that man to put his shirt on. He is so up his own hole, it fucking hurts. Man, he comes from that fucking dynasty of clarinet players, which also, he's so proud of. Man, You should be embarrassed to come from a dynasty of clarinet players. That is the fucking... Imagine saying that to a wee girl in the bar. Here, love, don't worry. I come from a dynasty of clarinet players. I'm so hot, mate. I'd be embarrassed. Fuck it, he is a wank, though. Sorry, Andy, if you're listening, but put a fucking shirt on. The French horn, back then, the natural horn, we called it, had crooks, it had hand stopping, like to make chromatic notes, you had to put your hand in front of the bell and blend it. Honestly, fucking shite. They could play like 6 notes, and they were great at that after that shite. The big revolution came in the 1800s when they added valves, and that made the horn fully chromatic to what we have now. And then the bassoon, again, Baroque and classical bassoons, dog shit, very uneven, basically used to just play bass lines the entire time, nothing beyond that. Gradual addition of the keys, as we did with all the other ones. Then we have 2 modern systems, actually, the bassoon, again, like the clarinets. We have the German Heckel system and the French buffet system. Now, the French one is not used that much outside of France. Even in France, it's kind of limited to how much they use it. But all these changes happened in the 1800s. But they were gradually being built up to in the 1700s as well. So when we're seeing Reicha starting to write for these instruments, they're getting better and better and better. And then they get even better. Reicha was still ahead of his time because we hadn't got to the full final form of every single one of the woodwind instruments yet. We are now, and they're great now, and modern composers do really write for them, especially since the sort of mid-1800s. Once they became established in that time and we got our own rep, the 1900s onwards, composers did write for wind instruments. They wrote great pieces, and they wrote for the wind quintet. Because nowadays, wind instruments, wind players are on par with violin players and string players. Violin players, string players, and piano players, sorry, you know that. Everyone else, basically. There are incredible musicians playing the flute, playing the clarinet, playing the bassoon, as good as your top violin players. We are really up there now. So we're starting to realize that we can write for these people. So top composers have written woodwind quintets. The most famous woodwind quintets would be by Malcolm Arnold, who I think his piece, The Three Shanties, which we're playing, fucking class piece. It's got the Drunken Sailor in it, amazing version of it. Really fucking hard to play. All these weird cross rhythms and stuff, fucking class piece. I think it was written for the Philharmonia Orchestra's soloists. Carl Nielsen with a great woodwind quintet. Samuel Barber, Paul Hindemith from Germany, Georgi Ligeti, and Jacques Ibert all wrote for the woodwind quintet. These are like the big names. This is the real shit. No more weird, shitty composers no one's heard of. So before I go, because I've been talking for a while, 27 minutes. Before I go, I've thrown a lot of information at you here, lads, about the woodwind quintet, but I haven't let you hear any of it, and I can't because Spotify are riding me sideways. The minute I play any kind of music, they are right up my hole with a fine or getting me a strike. So I can't play it for you, but what I can tell you is where to go listen to it. Hopefully you listen to this podcast for my sultry voices and comedic timing. But if you're listening to actually hear a bit of classical music, you're fucked. You only get a bit of kneecap at the start, which even then, fucking hell, they're trying to sue the shit out of me. Not sue me, but Spotify are trying to get rid of it. Wangers. Also, I know we should get rid of Spotify because they do ICE adverts, but I feel like this is an American problem. Fuck you guys and fuck ICE. Fuck the lot of yous. I don't care. If you're doing ICE adverts, fuck yous. If they're advertising for ICE, people are signing up. There's bigger problems than advertising for ICE. It's fucking the existence of ICE and the existence of Donald Trump. Fuck the lot of yous. I don't care if they're advertising for ICE. I don't like Spotify for how they treat artists, but advertising for ICE, I don't give a fuck, lads. That's a you problem now at this point. Fuck yous. Sorry. So, woodwind quintets to go. You can tell I don't edit this podcast. To go check out. Go listen to get your ears around. Go into any streaming service. I have 2 favorite woodwind quintets. The first one is a group called Variation 5. As one word, so variation and then the number 5 as one thing. So it's made up of 5 players, obviously. The 5 players are David Fernandez Alonso, not the guy who played for Real Betis in the 90s, not the footballer. Horn player, brilliant horn player. Then you have Marc Tranel, the French guy, on bassoon. Is he French or is he Belgian? Sorry, Marc. I think he's French. Then you have Ramon Ortega Quero on oboe. You have Sebastian Mans on clarinet. Man, I love Sebastian. I've met him a few times. A fucking wild man. I think this is a compliment, but he is the most clarinet player I've ever seen. You look at that man, you go, that's a man who plays the clarinet. Clarinet is made for that man, and that man is made for the clarinet. They are match made in heaven. And on flute, which is the one you're all waiting for, obviously, it is Magny Mounier. The best flute player in the world, in my opinion, and my favourite, and the most unique individual flute player there is. So that is an amazing quintet. I've seen them a few times live. Unbelievable, beautiful sound blend, and very delicate, very gentle, very poised. Not as in-your-face virtuoso. Not that level of music making, very, very subtle. They have one album, I think to my knowledge anyway. Unless they've done something new recently, I don't think they have. One album, it is self-titled. It's Variation 5. It has a lot of big quintets. It has the Jean Francais. It has the Arnold sea shanties that I told you about. They're class. It has the Nielsen quintet. And it has the Hindemith quintet. Go check it out. Now, I can't talk about quintets, woodwind quintets, without talking about the big one. Les Vents Français, they're called. This is like the Avengers of wind music. It's ridiculous, the people who play in this quintet. So on horn, you have Radovan Vlatkovic. On bassoon, you have Gilbert Audin. On clarinet, you have Paul Maillard. On oboe, you have François Leleu. Oh my God, what a man. What a player. Also married to a Georgian woman. A Georgian woman, as if it's not Lisa Batiashvili, one of the best violin players in the world. But I'm just trying to get a link to Georgia here. Lisa, come on my podcast. I will fly to Tbilisi to interview you. Any excuse. And on flute, of course, it is Emmanuel Bahu. Manu. That's like the Traveling Wilburys of fucking wind music, man. That's ridiculous. Like, you remember the Traveling Wilburys? I was talking about this in the pub recently. Like Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison, and the other guy. I should have written this down. Anyway, Jeff Lynne. So anyway, Les Vents Français, they have a load of albums out. Loads of my personal favourite is... They have one called Beethoven, and it's from 2017. Because Beethoven's wind writing was generally quite shite. It was quite wanky. He wrote a piece for flute and piano based on Irish themes. Absolute horseshit. I mean, Beethoven wrote shit. It's not like Mozart and Bach where everything was perfect. Beethoven wrote some really shit stuff as well. Amazing stuff as well, but kind of shit. But his wind writing wasn't great. He didn't really write a proper solo piece for the wind instruments. Not a good one anyway. So hearing these lads play arrangements and things by Beethoven to that level... on wind instruments is fucking class. And you realise if Beethoven was knocking about nowadays, he would write so much more for the flute and he would write so much more for wind instruments. But he's not. He's brown bread, unfortunately. So go check them out, lads. Have fun. Do you know what you should also do? Go start a fucking wind quintet. It's so easy to do. Wind players are always looking for something to do. Go start a woodwind quintet. It's so much fun to play in. You can get all kinds of bookings. You can do kinds of like light concerts as well. There's so many great arrangements for it. You can do any kind of concert. You can play in fucking shopping centres. You can play out in the street. You can busk. You can do everything with a woodwind quintet. It's great. Treat it like a string quartet and play the same venues. People do like it. They just don't realise they like it. Also, pro tip, if you want to start a woodwind quintet, you don't always need a French horn. You can get a saxophone player. You can substitute the French horn for the saxophone. It's not ideal, but it works. Trust me, saxophone players are like dogs. They're just happy to get out of the fucking house. Especially classical sax players who don't play jazz. They are dying to play a couple of notes with you. So go get a sax player. Go adopt a sax player. Support your local saxophone player. So, lads, anyway, I'm away here. Next week is a carnival episode, so I'm going to be filming that this week. I'm going to be off the rails for 5 days. If you haven't checked out the old Cologne Carnival episodes, go check it out. You can see what all my Instagram stories are about. So, I will see you in 2 weeks if I survive it. Slan, lads, and all the best. Mwah.
Get your man the flute to play, son. The fuck.